Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'll be reviewing Enola Holmes from Netflix. So the film is the story of Enola Holmes, who is the younger sister of Sherlock and Mycroft Holmes, and she's living in her family estate, loving her life with her mother, and then her mother suddenly up and vanishes, and then her brothers have to come back and show her how to be a proper person in society, and she decides to run out, try to find her mother, and just live her life by her own means. And I have to say, when I first saw the trailer for this movie, I was worried it might be a little cheesy. I hadn't really seen Millie Bobby Brown in anything really other than Stranger Things. I mean, she was in the most recent Godzilla movie, but she didn't have a ton to do, so I didn't really know what to expect. But I do think that she knocked it out of the park. I think she's definitely the standout from this film, and that's saying something because it's a pretty powerful cast, including Henry Cavill and some others that you would really think were the standouts in the movie, but really she steals the show. She fully embodies this character, has both a very whimsical, kind of naive blend, as well as someone who's very domineering and who isn't afraid of anything, and having her kind of have this journey. Her going out into the world that she doesn't know anything about and trying to use her skills, having skills that she has honed as a member of the Holmes family, was really fun. There's a lot of really fun, enjoyable action adventure moments in this movie. And at the end of the day, the story really has a lot to do with empowerment and trying to be who you want to be and going against society's norms and being progressive in the way that you decide to live your life. And I think it worked really well. It never felt like it was really preachy. Having the setting of the late 1800s, early 1900s era, turn of the century, really worked with the messaging, in my opinion. And speaking of that time period, they really did capture the atmosphere of London and all the other places that it takes place during this movie, because I was worried, production might not have been up to snuff when I compare it to something like the Sherlock Holmes films that we saw with Robert Downey Jr., but I think it almost lives up to them, in my opinion. It's very different. It doesn't have as dark of a tone. It doesn't have as very analytical of a tone. It's very whimsical, and I love that about this movie. I really did enjoy the overall tone of it. And like I said, Millie Bobby Brown is magnetic as Enola Holmes. You really are rooting for her, and you get to see all the progressions of her life, her frustrations, her ambitions, and her just going up against the system, and you root for her. It's easy to root for her. I think she shows a great range of emotion throughout this movie. I didn't really get to see that from her in Stranger Things. You do get to see it to some degree. I think, and when I saw Godzilla, she doesn't really do a lot. It's a lot of running around and screaming, but you get to see her put her acting chops out there, and I cannot wait to see what she does next. This is definitely something that I feel could set up a whole franchise just around her character. The supporting actors also did a fairly decent job. They don't have a ton to do with it. You would think with it being, based around a Sherlock Holmes property, you'd get a little bit more of Sherlock. He is in it. Henry Cavill is okay as Sherlock. Maybe we'd get to see a little bit more in the future if they teamed up. I'd like to see that. But I don't think we needed them. They definitely are the side characters to her main character. And as I had mentioned, it feels very whimsical. It feels like something that children could get a lot out of it too. The score of the film is really well done, in my opinion. It definitely elevates it to another level. And having just these really positive messaging, these really fun moments between the characters, it never really gets too dark. And I think it would work for everyone of all ages. I think it has some really solid action set pieces to it as well. I mean, I didn't really expect to get all this from this movie. I definitely thoroughly enjoyed it. One thing that I could see would be a knock for some people that didn't bother me too much is the constant fourth wall breaking. Enola is always turning to the camera and saying what's going on, explaining what's happening, telling the thought processes constantly. And it does jump back and forth quite a bit between what she was taught from her mother. I feel like it really helps flesh out her character and sets up who she is as a person. So I think that works, but the editing is a little jarring when it's jumping back and forth constantly between those two things. And I do think if you're someone who is a big fan of the Robert Downey films or Sherlock starring Benedict Cumberbatch, which I really enjoyed both of those, you might be a little disappointed just from the tone difference between this film and those properties. But I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed both, and I think it's definitely something that adds to the Sherlock allure. It's kind of this endless supply of content that you can create from these fantastically written books many years ago. And like I said, just creating the atmosphere of the time period is really well done. I think you have some really solid costuming designs, some really good set designs in general. The production of this movie surprised me. I was expecting a lot of CGI, and there was some, and it wasn't bad. I think it was blended in really well. I never felt like anything took me out of the movie. It never felt too ridiculous or anything like that. So if I were to rate this movie, I would actually give it a 9 out of 10. I really enjoyed it. I think it was one of the best Netflix films that they've put out this year, and one of the most enjoyable Sherlock properties. I mean, there haven't been many that I haven't enjoyed other than maybe Watson and Holmes that came out a little while ago. But this is definitely a fun family adventure, something that gives you some positive messaging. Doesn't hit you over the head with it though. It really does accomplish everything that it sets out to do, in my opinion. So if you checked out Enola Holmes, let me know what you thought about it. Maybe you enjoyed it as much as I did. Maybe you didn't. I'm really interested to see people that would see a movie like this and just really not enjoy it. I want to know what you didn't like about it, but I think everything that it set out to do, it accomplished. I think it had some really solid action adventure elements, some really heartwarming moments, some great moments of development and just kind of youth, and everything that it wanted to do, I think it accomplished. So again, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and see you guys next time.